Yep. This is my ragdash tutorial, highly requested. You know, everyone's asking me, how am I so crispy? Every single time I say there's almost 5 of them. You're going to be seeing a lot of them, by the way. These, as I will get into, these are not easy tricks, especially while talking about them. I guess we should just kind of get into it. Ragdashes consist of, I would say, 2 frame perfect inputs, something like a perfect initial jump length. We'll start there, I guess. There are a lot of different variations in jump height and therefore velocity. You have your 1 frame jump, which is this tiny little hop that no one ever does. That's a 2, 2. I think that's a 2. Those are 1s. Every 2. And then as you jump higher, hold the button down for longer, you get different velocities. And this is kind of the main thing that makes consistent ragdashing. I'm not talking about just like kind of hoping and praying and just spamming. I mean, because, anyone can do that, really. If you want to get consistent ragdashes, or at least like skill-based ragdashes, you need to, first of all, I say frame perfect input, I'm not exactly sure if it is, and depending on the jump height, you can make do with kind of whatever jump that comes out, just kind of by reacting to it and feeling out like, oh, I have this much speed. But I feel like I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. I said 2 frame perfect inputs. The first, obviously, is, what type of jump are you doing? And planning for that. And then there's more parts to it, I would say. Let's just do like a grounded, forward moving ragdash. So you jump, rag, and then that. You have my inputs up on the screen. So there's a lot there. There's the jump. There's a very specific timing in between the last part after the jump. So there's the jump, the ragdoll, and then what I do is that I try to press down and up on the same frame. My W is bound to jump and up, so honestly I don't really know which one is the benefactor, which one's actually contributing, but I'm just pressing W and D at the same time. It might look a little, might feel weird to do if you're on keyboard. What I'm doing is, first I jump, I'm holding D with my index finger, press jump with my middle finger. And then when I have to ragdoll, I'm ragdolling with my ring finger, which, not easy. That's kind of why everyone's left angles are a little shittier than their right angles. It's because you have to use your ring finger and time it, and the ring finger kind of sucks for that, but there's a little wiggle room for that input specifically. The reason I say 2 frame perfect inputs is the jump, the ragdoll, kind of. It's not really, there's wiggle room. Mainly, it's the ending part, which is where people mess up. You see people fall on their face, or they do this, they just do like a pathetic little hop. You have to press down and up on the same frame approximately. It makes it a lot more consistent if you do press them on the same frame. Because look what happens if I press down a lot earlier. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I feel like it gives you a down wiggle sometimes. Or it fucks with fucking something. Or maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm insane. You ever think of that? I find it easier because you have to be pressing down while you press up, while you exit the ragdoll, and you want to exit the ragdoll right when the midsection of your body is hitting the ground. So you see there, my feet are hitting the ground, so I'm able to exit the ragdoll, but I'm doing it too early. That was... What's going on here? Mostly it's when your duck body is folded in on itself, like your little egg getting cracked open, and the front part of your body is, the middle part is kind of touching the ground. You want the middle part to be touching the ground. There we go. Remember my lineups. The reason the ragdoll timing is so important is because if you do it too late, you just kind of land on your feet, and then if you ragdoll from that, unless you have a lot of momentum, which I'll get into later, you see the shape of the stage is really fucked up, and that's because ragdolls are fucked up, and so are ragdashes. Unless you have a ton of speed, you want to ragdoll and then wait a little bit before you press down and up. So that's the basic idea. You know, jump, ragdoll, depending on your velocity. If it's lower, you wait a little longer. If it's higher, you wait a little shorter. As in the time in between your ragdoll and your down and up. If you press up too early, this happens. If you do it too late, you get the pathetic little this. And if you do it really early, you flop the floor. The reason no one can do this is because it's a transference of horizontal momentum to vertical momentum, and it's very finicky, and so you have to figure out lineups on your own. Because think about the situations that you would use ragdashing in, right? Like, if you want to use it just to gain movement speed, you wouldn't practice ragdashing by doing this. Because the initial condition of your velocity is different than in reality what it would be, which would be this. You'd be running. If you're trying to run away from something or run towards it, it's a different timing than this. So the way that I did it is I just, locked myself in a room and figured out when to hold which buttons, essentially. Basically, it could be considered trial and error. It could be considered, making lineups. Like for the standing still ragdash, the way that I make it consistent is that I press jump and the direction I don't want to go at the same time, and just get a max height jump. It's very difficult to mess that up with regards to the jump height, because you're just getting a max height jump and you're going to land with the same velocity every time, assuming you press them on the same frame or they're read on the same frame. So I do that, and at some indeterminate point in the middle of my arc, I turn around, and then after I do that, some indeterminate point, I ragdoll and press up and down. Wait, shit, that's my running one. That's my turnaround. Yeah, got confused. So if I'm running away and I want to feint, and I'm being scared, and then turn around and just do goofy shit on them. See, those weren't max heights, which is where the problem was, yep. So another thing is, there's also a difference between this and this. You cover a lot more ground, which means you have more horizontal velocity when you're already at your max running speed. And so this can be taken advantage of, or I guess worked around, depending on the situations you find yourself in, how many of these stupid ass lineups you want to subject yourself to learning. So think of all the variations that could be, right? There's running full speed and wanting to turn around. There's running full speed and wanting to go in the same direction. There's standstill, going in one direction, standstill, feinting, going in the other. You're thinking two-dimensionally. This isn't... Duck Game doesn't have Final Destination. There's drop-offs. And you know what that means? That means you're hitting different gravitational values, truly. And that extra block, that fucks up everything, because all of your lineups are not going to work if you're going from 1 to 2, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 1 to 3, whatever you want to do. Have fun. Good luck learning these. It's a bitch. Are you running off? What type of jump are you doing? For longer drop-offs, I like doing a one-frame jump. That's just what makes sense to me, because it matches up the horizontal and vertical speed. How helpful is this fucking tutorial, huh? What else is there? Yeah, really, really high falls. The thing about really high falls is that they're all the same. Whether you fall, you know, from here or here, you reach a kind of terminal velocity. And if you just kind of lackadaisically, like, just jump off. If you don't do that, if you just kind of hold forward whenever, rag whenever, your ragdoll, when it hits the ground, is going to be fucked up. It's going to splat on the pavement. Remember what I said about the timing in between the ragdoll press and the up-down press. Since these are so high velocity, you want to bang bang. There really shouldn't be too much time in between when you're pressing Q or whatever your ragdoll button is. If you're normal, it's probably a button that's more ergonomic. There shouldn't be too much time between the ragdoll press and the down up. It should be like a really quick sequence. I think there's like 2 frames in between for the lineup that I do sometimes. notice that wiggling, there's a terminal velocity, downward, right? There's also one forward. It's called your max run speed. If you go max run speed and max terminal gravitational velocity, it's very rare that it works, because you just fall head first and it's just random. I feel like it's more random than slowing down, right? Because if you watch one in slow motion, frame by frame, the top duck part, you can see it in the hitbox viewer. You got two spots. The top kind of compresses into the bottom, and then you kind of spring off of it because the collision is like inside itself. It's all fucked. But if you're just holding forward, there's no confusion. The game is just like, oh, your head's going forward, and you want to fold backwards. See, even that was too much forward. That was too late. That's why you see me wiggling around in the air. It's not just that people don't know what the fuck I'm doing. It's not like a feint, it's me controlling my speed. I'm gonna try and focus and actually hit one of these. I mean, I know I did earlier, but damn. There we go. So that's the deal with being very high up. You see this on like I don't know the names of the maps because I'm not a nerd, but the one where it's 4 mag blasters in the 4 corners of the map, and you spawn left and you want to get to the bottom mag blaster fast, so you go and then you do that, but you fuck it up and then you get there slower. There's applications, I promise. I'm not wasting my time, Copium. Another thing, you pretty much can't ragdash out of a ragdoll jump. Because if you notice, it's not consistent where you fall. So there's a slight bit of variation happening every time you rag jump. I don't think there's a way to do it perfect enough that you can have it be consistent. Both in height gained, right? Like, if you do a full height jump, you're not getting to terminal velocity. But if you do a rag jump, maybe you are. Maybe you're getting, you're definitely getting a lot more speed at the end. But again, it's just inducing extra randomness when the shit is already janky as shit anyway. What the fuck? What else? What do people want to know? I don't know, there's not much more to tell, right? Like, if you want to learn this, this is the most mechanically intensive tech probably in the game. And there's gonna be grinding. There's no better way to put it. So, learn flat ground stuff and then fucking move on to little drops. Maybe one day you'll be like me, who's like on any given ragdash probably 50% chance to make it, unless it's like one of the easier lineups. Like the reverser. I like that one. And of course, since ragdashes are transferals of horizontal speed to vertical, the higher ones, they are more risky, obviously, because you can do something embarrassing, like completely just like bounce off the floor sometimes, and then fuck up, and then miss your unrag and fall off. But they also are the fastest, and they get you the furthest. Not that one, that one's late. That's why I like going into little dips. You can really tell when you hit it versus when you don't. Like for flat ground, the best amount of distance you can get is kind of pitiful. I mean, you know it happened, but like, it's less impressive. And by the way, this isn't really a technique you need to know at all. There's very, very rare instances where I've ragdashed and it's benefited me in the slightest beyond being like feeling swaggier than my opponent. There are people who want to know. Shout out Burger. I think Colin asked one time, but I am probably wrong. Yeah, how to learn. Section it off into parts. How high am I jumping? When am I ragdolling? And how long do I wait after I ragdoll to press down and up? And then experiment. Find what works for you, because ragdolls are a fucking wild beast, and she is difficult to tame, but if you do, you will swag on the people of fowl play. I feel like I'm missing something. I'm gonna sit here and think for 20 seconds while I think about what I'm missing. I mean, the way I hold my keyboard is fucking weird. The muscle memory for left rag dashes is entirely different than from right, and if you're on keyboard, have fun with that. Controller, straight up, I do not think you can rag dash with any level of consistency unless you're actually a task, because I think analog inputs affect walk speed. So instead of turning around on a specific frame, unless you're playing on D-pad, in which case you're essentially playing on keyboard. Like if I go from left to right, I know that, you know, I'm shifting my momentum. I'm slowing down going left, and I'm adding in a right. Oh, by the way, another frame perfect input. If you're keeping count at home, if you're doing the back and forth, you have to let go of the direction you're holding and press the direction you want to actually go on the same frame if you want to do it consistently, because if you don't, then your horizontal velocity is out of sync with your vertical velocity, and you'll probably do rag dash like this. Little hop. Not like that. That one was wrong. Yeah, I mean, unless I'm gonna sit here and divulge all my secrets. Not secrets, all my shitty lineups. Which I'm not gonna do. Because who wants to count frames? Yeah, that's pretty much it. You probably didn't learn anything, because this is a complete incomprehensible ramble, but like whatever.